Right now, your brain is actually quietly trying to run this background program that generates your best ideas, your deepest empathy, and your sharpest insights.
Right.
But there's a big problem.
Right, a really big problem.
Yeah. Every single time you add a new top priority to your to-do list, you are physically shutting that program down.
Just completely turning it off.
Exactly. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are tackling a story that, honestly, most of us just accept as an absolute law of gravity.
Oh, for sure. We all do it.
The story goes something like this. What you put first is what you care about. And what you care about reveals your character. It's this whole idea that to prioritize something is the ultimate proof that it actually matters to you.
Yeah.
And, well, failing to prioritize it, that is basically a moral failure.
It really is a deeply embedded narrative. I mean, we completely equate our attention with virtue. So if you care about your family, your career, your community, your health, you put them all at the absolute top of the list.
Right. They all have to be number one.
Yes. And because of that logic, we've built a society and entirely exhausted our personal lives around this constant, frantic addition of priorities. We honestly think that adding more to our plate means we are living a more meaningful life.
But today, we are completely dismantling that narrative. We're pulling together some really fascinating data from neuroscience, developmental psychology, ecology, and even ancient cosmology.
Which sounds like a wild mix, but it all connects.
It totally does.
Yeah.
Because they all point to the exact same highly counterintuitive conclusion. Our modern productivity culture just has it backwards.
Completely backwards.
So our mission today is to explore the profound structural intelligence of not prioritizing. We want to show you why strategically withdrawing your energy rather than constantly managing and adding to it is actually the most powerful thing you can do for your nervous system, your relationships, and your work.
Exactly. Because the most sophisticated systems in existence, I mean, from human neurology to the formation of actual galaxies, they do not organize themselves around the constant prioritization of everything at once. They rely on this highly intelligent alternation between engagement and release. Basically, if everything is important, nothing is.
Okay, let's unpack this, and let's start with the hard science. Because before we can talk about changing our daily habits, we really need to understand why trying to prioritize everything literally breaks our physical architecture.
Yeah, it's not just a mindset issue, it's a hardware issue.
Exactly. So let's look at cognitive load theory. This was developed by the educational psychologist John Sweller back in the 1980s. Sweller established that our working memory, the executive processing layer of our mind that handles active tasks, it can only hold about 4 to 7 chunks of information at any given time.
4 to 7, that's it.
That's it. So trying to hold 12 high priorities in your working memory is, it's like a waiter trying to carry 12 plates of hot food without a tray.
Oh, that's a great way to picture it.
Right. And it's not just that the waiter has to walk a little slower. The physical act of balancing those plates consumes absolutely all of their attention. So they end up bumping into tables, losing track of orders, and, well, eventually dropping the food entirely.
That is a perfect analogy. And the tragedy here is that when we drop those plates, we blame ourselves.
We always do. I'm just not disciplined enough.
Exactly. We think, oh, I just need a better time management app, or I need to wake up at 5 a.m. and grind harder. But Sweller's research shows us that cognitive overload is a hard structural limit. Like I said, biological architecture.
You literally can't out-hustle it.
You really can't. When you exceed those 4 to 7 chunks, you are physically degrading your decision quality. You exponentially increase your error rates, and you just completely kill your capacity for creative insight. You generate this very specific kind of neurological suffering that our culture has, cleverly rebranded as simply being busy.
And we reward people for that. We give them promotions for redlining their brain's hardware. But the most devastating cost of this chronic high-priority operation is what it does to something called the default mode network, or the DMN.
Ah, the DMN. It's so fascinating. You will sometimes hear people casually call it the resting state of the brain, but that is a really lazy and deeply misleading term.
It makes it sound like the brain is just taking a nap on the couch.
Right, like it's just powered down. But the DMN is actually the site of your most advanced spontaneous cognition. It's the network responsible for self-referential thought, integrating the narrative of your life, and, processing complex empathy.
Wow.
Yeah, it is the background intelligence that works behind the scenes to connect entirely disparate pieces of information into a sudden, brilliant insight.
Okay, so this is why I might struggle with a problem at my desk for like 4 hours, get absolutely nowhere, and then suddenly have a massive creative breakthrough in the shower on a random Tuesday morning. My DMN was finally allowed to boot up.
Precisely. When you figure something out without actively trying to figure it out, that is your DMN doing the heavy lifting. But here is the critical, measurable fact about how this works physically in your head. Executive attention and the DMN are anti-correlated.
Meaning they can't run at the same time.
Exactly. You can see this vividly on an fMRI scan. When your executive function, so your prioritization and task execution mode is dialed up, the blood flow and connective tissue to the DMN are physically suppressed.
Wow. When one goes up, the other goes down.
Yes, you literally cannot have those profound DMN events if you are perpetually executing tasks. You are starving your brain's insight engine of oxygen.
Okay, I hear what you're saying about the default mode network, but let me push back on that just a little bit.
Sure.
Practically speaking, I associate a racing heart and a packed schedule with actually getting things done. Like if my heart rate is up and I'm physically mobilized, moving from meeting to meeting, doesn't that mean I'm being productive?
That's what we're taught to feel, yeah.
Right. And if I am physically downregulated, aren't I just being lazy? How does the science differentiate between resting and just stopping?
That is exactly the trap the culture sets for us. We equate biological mobilization with value. To understand why that is flawed, we have to look at the HeartMath Institute's research on heart rate variability, HRV, alongside Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory.
Okay, let's break that down.
Think of your autonomic nervous system as having a gas pedal and a brake pedal. The gas pedal is the sympathetic state. That is your mobilized, fight or flight, urgency calibrated mode. And our culture basically treats that gas pedal as the baseline for a productive life.
Right, we treat it like it's the only gear the car has. If you aren't accelerating, you're failing.
Exactly. But polyvagal theory shows us that there is a highly evolved brake pedal called the vagus nerve. When you engage this nerve, you enter what's called the ventral vagal state.
Ventral vagal.
Yes. Taking your foot off the gas isn't just stopping or being lazy. Engaging this nerve physically lowers your heart rate and opens up the brain's capacity to read social cues, feel genuine connection, and solve complex, non-linear problems.
So the HeartMath research on heart rate variability, that's measuring how well we switch between the gas and the brake.
Yes. High heart rate variability means your heart can instantly adapt to what your environment requires. It can speed up when you need to act and immediately slow down when you are safe.
Which makes sense.
Right. That flexibility is a state called coherence. It is the highest functioning state of the human nervous system, but it absolutely requires the downswing.
You have to be able to brake.
Exactly. If you are always in a sympathetic state, keeping your foot slammed on the gas because everything is a top priority, your vagus nerve actually loses its tone. You lose the ability to brake, you lose coherence, and with it, you lose your most nuanced human capacities.
Wow. Because the return to baseline isn't a failure to be productive. It's literally half of the architecture of a healthy brain. Which means if our brains physically cannot handle this constant prioritization, they will eventually force us to stop.
Yeah.
And this leads us to a crucial distinction, the vast difference between letting go by choice versus letting go by collapse.
This raises such an important question about how we step back, because how we do it matters immensely. The modern productivity discourse completely misses the difference between forced deprioritization and chosen deprioritization.
Let's define those.
So forced deprioritization is burnout. It is your nervous system hitting its absolute structural limit and shutting down the engine to save your life. You aren't choosing what to let go.
Yeah.
Your system is dropping everything because the tank is entirely empty.
And psychologically, that feels like a massive failure.
It really does.
Right? It doesn't feel spacious or freeing. It feels terrifying, like your car engine just seized up on the highway.
Yes, exactly. Chosen deprioritization, on the other hand, is an act of active, spacious discernment. It actually requires more executive function to selectively put something down than it does to just blindly add it to your to-do list. And you can feel the difference if you do a somatic audit.
A somatic audit, which really just means checking in with the physical sensations in your body, right?
Exactly. You literally ask your body, how a priority actually feels. Fear-held priority feels tight in your chest. It loops compulsively in your mind. You keep checking your email or your project status because you're terrified of what happens if you stop managing it.
We've all been there.
Yeah, genuine priority, however, feels directional and alive. It has a natural rhythm.
I really love that semantic distinction. It reminds me of the developmental psychologist Donald Winnicott and his concept of the good enough mother.
Oh, that's a brilliant connection.
Yeah, Winnicott found that a mother who never allows a single moment of unmet need, who constantly hovers, anticipates every single want, and keeps the infant as her absolute uninterrupted priority, she actually impairs the child's psychological development. And it's not out of malice, but out of excess.
She doesn't give the child the necessary friction to develop their own sense of self.
Exactly. If you constantly prioritize every single aspect of your own life, you are basically helicopter parenting yourself. You're micromanaging your own existence. Winnicott advocated for what he called benign neglect.
Benign neglect. I love that.
Right. Adult friendships, processing grief, building a creative project, they all actually need gaps in our total attention to develop their own inner world. Think about a friendship. If you're constantly auditing the relationship, endlessly analyzing every text message and managing the dynamic, you are suffocating it under an interrogation lamp.
You're not letting it breathe.
Exactly. You have to step back and trust the relationship to do its work underground.
There is a beautiful Japanese aesthetic concept for this called ma. It translates roughly to the productive pause or negative space.
Like the silence between notes.
Exactly. It is the silence between musical notes that makes the melody actually exist. It's the breath between lines of poetry. In architecture, ma is the empty space within a room that makes the room livable.
Right. Otherwise, it's just a solid block.
Yes. Ma is not an absence of value. It is a different kind of presence. A life of maximum prioritization has zero ma. It attempts to fill every single interval with the next urgency.
But if Ma is so natural, and if our nervous systems so desperately need this ventral vagal state to survive, why does stepping back feel like a crime? Like, why do we feel so incredibly guilty when we take our foot off the gas?
That's the million-dollar question.
Well, a big part of the answer is that the urgencies we feel often do not even belong to us.
Yes.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We have to look at the philosopher René Girard and his mimetic theory. Girard basically spent his career proving that human desire isn't as autonomous as we like to think.
Not at all.
No. We believe we are making independent, deeply personal, moral choices about our priorities. But they are actually socially triangulated. We urgentize whatever the group urgentizes.
It is a profound mechanism of human social cognition. I mean, we have mirror neurons for a reason. This kind of social contagion is how we function and survive as a collective organism. We look to others to signal what is safe and what is a threat.
It's like when one person in the company's Slack channel uses the red siren emoji and suddenly everyone acts like the building is on fire over a minor typo in a newsletter.
Yeah, the urgency is entirely contagious.
Completely.
And while that was a survival mechanism on the savannah, today we exist within algorithmic machinery that weaponizes it. Social media platforms intentionally reward outrage and panic with immense reach. They've created what we call an urgency marketplace.
An urgency marketplace.
Yes. The algorithms you scroll through do not care if an urgency is genuine. They only care if it generates engagement. But your physical body doesn't know the difference. Your nervous system processes this manufactured, algorithmically optimized digital panic as a real biological threat.
So it just keeps you locked in that sympathetic state.
Indefinitely. Keeps you in fight or flight.
Which perfectly illustrates the philosopher Ivan Illich's concept of counterproductivity.
It really does. Illich observed a very specific phenomenon. He said that when human institutions exceed a certain scale, they begin to produce the exact opposite of their stated purpose.
Like medicine making people sick.
Right. He pointed to medical systems that become so overly industrialized they generate illness, or educational systems so rigid they destroy a child's natural desire to learn. And in our society, counterproductivity applies perfectly to prioritization.
Because everything is urgent.
Exactly. A culture that treats every single email, news alert, and social obligation as maximum urgency becomes completely incapable of responding to actual urgency. The signal-to-noise ratio collapses. Urgency inflation means that urgency means nothing.
But I have to challenge that because, well, the stakes right now feel incredibly high.
Of course they do.
Right. So what about real systemic emergencies? Climate change, systemic injustice, political crises. Doesn't the world actually need our constant mobilized attention right now? Doesn't stepping back and engaging our brake pedal mean we are abandoning the work and being complicit?
It is a vital question, and honestly, it's the main reason people feel so much guilt about resting. But the burnout literature from organizational psychology provides a very clear empirical answer to this.
What does the data say?
If you study social movements and high-stakes organizations, the communities with the most longevity and the deepest impact are not the ones with the most highly mobilized, panicked membership.
Really?
Yes, the movements that succeed are the ones that practice what psychologists call sequencing.
Meaning they understand that you can't play every instrument at the same time.
Exactly. Different work happens at different paces. These successful groups fiercely protect rest cycles, not as a confession to weakness, but as a structural requirement for the work. And interpersonally, they do the exact same thing.
Now so.
Well, over-prioritizing group dynamics, feeling the need to instantly process and analyze every single interaction or conflict, it actually crowds out the relational being.
The relational being.
Right. The relational being is the quiet, slow accumulation of trust that happens in the dark. It is the deepening of solidarity that only grows through unstructured time together, not through scheduled high-urgency processing sessions.
Wow, the idea that we can just let a relationship or even a community exist as a living texture in the background without constantly managing it, that is so freeing.
It's a huge relief.
And once we strip away all this manufactured social urgency, we are left with a realization that is both terrifying and incredibly liberating.
Which is?
We are not the primary agents keeping the universe spinning.
No, we definitely are not. If we connect this to the bigger picture and scale this entire concept up beyond human biology and psychology, we can look at the cosmos itself.
Right.
The universe is about 13.8 billion years old. It did not create galaxies, planetary systems, or biological consciousness by keeping everything at maximum priority simultaneously.
No, it took its time.
Exactly. It used mass extinctions, millions of years of quiet gestation, and the slow death of stars. The cosmos operates on a timescale where our frantic human urgency looks like a toddler banging on a locked door.
That is quite the image. And what's amazing is that human beings used to know this intuitively. If you look at global mythological wisdom, this isn't some new age productivity hack. It is ancient structural truth.
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere.
Take the Hindu cosmological tradition of the Trimurti.
Yeah.
You have Brahma the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Shiva the destroyer. Shiva's dissolution function is considered just as sacred and just as necessary as creation.
Right. You can't have one without the other.
Exactly. Then there is the goddess Kali, who terminates what no longer serves. And her criterion isn't cruelty, it's truth. She deprioritizes forms that have completed their cycle so that new life can actually begin.
We see this deeply ingrained across so many traditions. Mawu, the West African creator goddess, creates the world through both making and destroying. The Hawaiian goddess Papahanaumoku births new islands and receives them back in an unbroken geological cycle.
It's a natural rhythm.
Yes. In Celtic traditions, you have the Kayech, the winter goddess. She actively deprioritizes the surface life of the land, stripping the leaves from the trees, in order to seed the underground spring.
The reason this matters to you right now is that for thousands of years, humans understood that winter, the stepping back, the deprioritization, the letting things die off was absolutely necessary for the spring. But today, we expect ourselves to be in constant summer mode.
Always blooming. Always. We want maximum output, maximum foliage, 365 days a year. When you try to force yourself to be in spring and summer all year round, you don't get a better harvest. You just completely deplete your own soil.
That is the essence of the Taoist concept of Wu Wei. It is often poorly translated in the West as non-action or passivity, but it is actually a highly demanding state of being.
How so?
Wu Wei is action precisely calibrated to what a situation asks for, which frequently means intentionally withholding your intervention. It means resisting the frantic human compulsion to manage processes that are already working perfectly well on their own.
Wow.
Yeah. The river carves the canyon without consciously deciding to. The divine source is never in an anxious, hypervigilant relationship with its own creation.
It's like assuming you have to consciously remember to beat your own heart or digest your own food.
Exactly. It would drive you crazy.
At a certain point, overlaying our executive management onto processes that never ask to be managed is just pure ego. It's the arrogant assumption that without our constant sweating worry, everything falls apart. We give ourselves a little too much credit.
We really do. And this connects directly to the French philosopher Simone Weil and her idea of creative attention. She argued that the absolute highest form of presence, whether you're listening to another person or trying to grasp a profound truth, it requires that you temporarily deprioritize yourself.
Yes.
You have to suspend your ego's frantic timeline to actually receive what is true. You have to stop trying to drive the outcome.
It is the ongoing daily choice to not intervene. It requires trusting that something much older and more intelligent than your personal priority list is already at work. When you genuinely release something, and I mean truly set it down, not just perform non-attachment while anxiously checking your email about it, you create space.
And space is not the absence of content. Space is the condition for new content to arrive.
That's beautifully said.
It's the silence that makes the music possible. So intelligent deprioritization has to start with a somatic audit of your own body. We have to learn to feel the difference between genuine, directional aliveness and that grinding, looping fear in our chests. We have to look at our to-do list and ask ourselves, whose urgency am I currently running?
Did I install this urgency myself?
Right. Or did the urgency marketplace install it for me?
Releasing something from your priority list isn't neglect. We really have to let go of that guilt. It is actually the most refined form of care you can offer. It's giving the underground processes, whether that is your brain's default mode network, the quiet trust in your relationships, or the longevity of your community, the faith and the space they desperately need to do their deepest work.
So what does this all mean for you today? Take a look at your digital life. How many of the platforms, notifications, or news feeds you consume are deliberately engineered to trigger your sympathetic nervous system and manufacture mimetic urgency?
Probably most of them.
Probably all of them, honestly. What would happen if, for just 48 hours, you consciously muted the things screaming for your attention? What quiet insights might your default mode network have been waiting for years to hand you? Try taking Winnicott's advice and give yourself a little benign neglect. Let the jagged, broken X-ray of our productivity culture fade out and see what the muddy, quiet waters of your own mind can build when you finally stop trying to manage them.